Welcome to the deep dive. Normally, our job here is to, take these huge research papers or dense historical accounts and boil them down for you, give you that shortcut to being informed.
Right. We tackle the sprawling stuff.
Exactly. But today, we're doing something a little different. We're going deep, really deep, doing a kind of forensic linguistic and emotional analysis on a document that is incredibly brief.
Yeah, it's tiny, but it's so charged, intensely sensory. This text is basically all about one specific smell, or the perception of one, and the internal chaos that follows.
So our mission today is to really dissect that journey. How does this super short narrative go from just detecting something through this moment of crisis and land eventually in, well, outright obsession?
And because it's so short, every single word, every bit of punctuation, it's like a clue. We have to treat it like key data to understand the whole arc.
Absolutely. It's like this concentrated little psychological snapshot. And the weird thing is, the only catalyst seems to be the sense of smell. That's all it takes to trigger this complete internal, well, meltdown, and then this total transformation afterwards.
It's fascinating because it really pushes back against how we usually think about our senses, doesn't it? Like, smell is often secondary. But here, it's presented as this immediate, almost life-altering event.
Totally. It dictates everything that follows the psychology, the physical reactions, and there's no visual confirmation mentioned at all. It's all smell.
Which brings us right to the hook, the thing that immediately grabs you if you look at this text.
Oh, yeah, you can't miss it. It creates this instant intimacy, doesn't it? You're right there with the narrator. It starts with that sound, repeated.
The sniff, sniff.
Yeah, that sound of active investigation, and then bam, this huge, almost alarming identification, boy smell. All caps, exclamation points.
And that opening, those few elements, they basically set the entire pace and the whole tone for what follows. We're dropped right into the narrator's head, mid-action, as they're trying to figure out this smell.
Okay, let's really unpack that opening. Because like you said, it's not passive. The structure isn't just, oh, I smell something. It's deliberate. That auditory cue, the sniff-sniff, it establishes the pacing, right? I read that as someone actively searching, like leaning in, testing the air, trying to confirm something they suspect, not just bumping into a smell by accident.
That's a really key point. The repetition, sniff, sniff, it gives you that immediate sense of active presence. The narrator isn't just, receiving data passively. They're engaging the environment actively.
With their nose, basically.
Exactly. And that technique, it puts you, the reader or listener, right into that moment of uncertainty with them. It's the sound of that sensory input kind of breaking through whatever quiet internal state they were in before.
And that active search, that effort, it immediately builds tension, doesn't it? Because right after the sniffing, there's this moment of, well, almost disbelief in the recognition. The text has, is that a B-O-Y I smell?
Yeah, notice the stutter, the I is that.
Exactly. It shows that hesitation. But what's amazing is how quickly the smell is treated as definitive proof. Not just, oh, someone's nearby, but specifically a B-O-Y. The identity and the proximity seem locked in just by the scent.
That tentative phrasing, I is that, it really reflects that split second where the sensory input hits the brain, but the cognitive processing hasn't quite caught up. The brain's still figuring out the implications.
But the smell itself must be incredibly distinct, right? Because it jumps straight past general categories like person or stranger, right to the specific label, a B-A-Y.
The speed of that categorization tells you a lot about how powerful or maybe how familiar that specific odor is perceived to be by the narrator. It's immediately recognizable.
But then, boom, that uncertainty just vanishes. It gets completely wiped out by this confirmation and then this conceptual labeling. Yes, I smell it. Boy smell. I smell a boy.
Right. And suddenly it's not just a smell anymore.
No. It's like an event, a revelation.
And this is where we really need to pause and look at the language. The linguistic reinforcement here is just intense. You've got capitalization, boy smell, all caps. You've got multiple exclamation points. You've got the repetition of smell and boy.
Yeah, the capitalization is wild. It's like the smell itself has become a proper noun. Boy smell. Like it's a specific entity, a thing in itself.
Exactly. It's not just a boy smell, it's boy smell.
Yeah.
Capitalized, branded almost.
And when you see text like that, all caps, tons of exclamation points, what does that signal, linguistically or emotionally?
Well, linguistically, capitalizing a concept like that usually signals immediate categorization and, frankly, immense psychological impact. It suggests this specific smell instantly connects to something deeply significant for the narrator.
Like memories or associations, or maybe just a really strong biological reaction.
Could be any or all of those. The point is, the narrator's internal system has flagged this as important, hugely important, demanding the visual equivalent of shouting it out. It's signifying maximum emotional volume.
Okay, so identification, huge impact, and then instantly crisis. There's no pause, no gentle lead-in. It goes straight from labeling boy smell to pure, almost existential panic. What is a boy doing here? Oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
That's the sound of total cognitive overload right there. The confirmation of presence based only on smell. Remember, it just short-circuits the emotional system.
The rapid-fire questions, the oh my gosh, which is interesting in itself, that kind of digital age slang finding its way into this raw expression.
Yeah, it really paints a picture of high alarm. Extreme stress. The mere presence of a boy, confirmed only by this sense we often ignore, is treated as an immediate threat. A threat to the narrator's, I guess, emotional stability.
Okay, but hang on. Why panic? That's the part I'm circling back to. If the smell is so instantly recognizable, so potent that it gets capitalized as boy smell, doesn't that imply some level of familiarity?
That's a great question. It seems contradictory, doesn't it?
Yeah. If you recognize it, why freak out so intensely?
Well, I think the panic might not be fear of the smell itself. The panic seems to be a reaction to the implications of the smell, specifically the confirmed proximity of the source and maybe the lack of visual confirmation.
Ah, okay. So it's not ew boy smell, it's, oh my God, a boy is here right now, and I wasn't ready.
Exactly. The scent is definitive proof. The boy is nearby, maybe unexpectedly, maybe invading personal space, perceived or real. The narrator hasn't established control over the situation. They haven't seen him. They don't know the context.
So the sensory data, the smell is irrefutable, but the situation, the social context is totally unknown and unresolved. Yeah. And that gap creates the anxiety.
Precisely. The equilibrium is shattered. The smell forces a confrontation with the reality of the boy's presence before the narrator feels prepared to handle it. And that lack of control, that uncertainty, manifests as panic.
Which peaks with that really blunt, all-caps declaration. There's a boy here. I'm freaking out so much. That's the absolute height of the emotional spike, isn't it?
It is. It's the summit of the crisis phase, and it's crucial to remember this entire storm was generated purely by that initial sniff. It sets an incredibly high bar for the emotional intensity we're dealing with in this text, right from the get-go.
Okay, so the panic is intense, undeniable, freaking out so much. But what's really fascinating, I think, is what happens next. The speed and the way the narrator shifts gears.
All right. They don't just stay in panic mode, and they don't seem to, like, run away or hide.
No. Instead, there's this immediate attempt at internal control, which shows this surprising moment of self-awareness right in the middle of total chaos.
Exactly. This next part reveals a kind of sophisticated, maybe even instinctual, self-regulation strategy. Right after declaring maximum freakout, we get this self-soothing command, calm down, calm down.
It's not narrative description, is it? It's like the narrator is literally talking to themselves, issuing orders to their own panicked brain.
It absolutely reads like that, a direct mandate to stabilize the system. It's like we're seeing a psychological intervention happening in real time, logged right there in the text.
They recognize the chaos and decide, okay, got to get a grip. But then the technique they choose for calming down, given that the panic came from a smell, it's kind of baffling.
It is, isn't it? The instruction is, and take a nice deep breathe.
A deep breath of the air containing the smell.
Precisely. And that's the pivot point, the absolute crux of this transition. They're telling themselves to use a classic grounding technique, deep breathing, which is meant to calm the nervous system.
But in doing so, they are consciously, deliberately choosing to inhale more of the exact sensory input that triggered the crisis.
It seems completely counterintuitive on the surface.
Right. Isn't the point of grounding sometimes to, focus on something else, to distract from the overwhelming input? Why would you actively embrace the stimulus that caused the panic? Deliberately breathe it in deeper.
This is where we can maybe interpret it as a form of, well, almost like unconscious, immediate exposure therapy. The narrator might realize, perhaps not even fully consciously, that they can't just switch off their nose. They can't escape the confirmed presence.
So fighting it is useless.
Potentially. So maybe the only path forward isn't to fight the stimulus, but to reevaluate it, to face it head on. By deliberately inhaling it deeply, they're forcing their emotional system to process the smell under controlled, self-directed conditions.
Huh. So it's like a psychological gamble. They're betting that maybe the inherent quality of the smell itself, which, let's face it, the name Boysmell suggests something potentially positive or at least significant was there from the start, will override the panic caused by the surprise proximity.
Exactly. They're potentially trying to shift the focus from threat detected to analyzing the stimulus quality. The deep breath, intended to calm the body physiologically, simultaneously forces a more profound, deliberate engagement with the odor.
Turning the crisis point into a new sensory anchor point.
That's a great way to put it. This re-engagement, this deliberate second encounter with the smell, seems to be the mechanism that allows the transition. If the panic was about surprise and lack of control, the controlled inhalation is about accepting the reality and reassessing it.
And this act, this deliberate breath, it leads directly to the second round of sniffing, marked again by the text, sniff, sniff.
Yes, but the intention behind this second sniff feels completely different.
Totally. The first was searching, maybe anxious uncertainty. This one feels intentional, deliberate, almost like searching for pleasure now, not confirmation of a threat. It's enabled by that successful calm down moment.
The intention changes everything, doesn't it? The narrator seems to have moved past just detecting a presence or a potential threat to actively seeking confirmation of, well, enjoyment.
And the result of this second, intentional sniffing, it's immediate. And the transformation is absolute. The fear, the panic, gone, just melts away.
Replaced by this incredibly positive evaluation. It smells so good. I love Boysmell so much.
So the self-regulation worked. It completely flipped the emotional valence of the smell.
Right.
And just to clarify for listeners, when we say emotional valence, we mean like the inherent attractiveness or repulsiveness of something.
Right. Is it good or bad? Pleasant or unpleasant?
And here it went from bad, threat, crisis to good, amazing, love it.
Incredibly fast. The smell itself, the chemical compounds in the air presumably haven't changed, but the narrator's internal processing of that smell has done a complete 180-degree turn.
The initial shock got absorbed somehow. And maybe that underlying positive association hinted at by the immediate Boysmell label was just waiting underneath the panic to be unleashed.
It really shows the power of internal framing, doesn't it? How we interpret a stimulus can radically change our response. The source of the smell goes from being perceived as a threat to being perceived as a source of intense euphoria.
And again, this shift is absolute. There's no middle ground, no neutrality mentioned. It's straight from peak panic to peak affection. The intensity of the language stays high, still all the exclamation points.
Yes, the volume is still cranked up.
But the polarity flips entirely. From fear-based chaos to, well, love-based delight. It really underscores how this narrator's internal world seems completely dominated by this one sensory experience.
And this complete emotional reversal, this embracing of the scent as wonderful, sets the stage perfectly for the next development in the text. Because the experience moves beyond just feeling good.
Right. It starts becoming physical.
Exactly. It starts generating a somatic experience, a tangible physical manifestation of this newfound positive feeling.
Okay, so we've tracked the journey. Detection leads to crisis, which is then managed through this weirdly brave, deep breath, leading to acceptance and even delight. But now the effect of the smell gets even more intimate, right? It becomes physical.
Yes, this part is crucial because it really cements that powerful link between the smell, the olfactory input, and very specific physical and psychological responses. It's not just in the head anymore.
The scent isn't just driving mood now. It's actively creating a physical sensation. The text says, I'm getting tingles all over from the delicious boysons.
Right, tingles all over. That's the somatic evidence. That's the body physically reacting to this reevaluated smell.
Let's focus on that phrase, tingles all over. It describes a very definite, widespread physical reaction. And it's tied explicitly and solely to the odor. It's not like they saw something appealing. It's purely the smell causing this.
It's like the body's way of confirming the brain's decision. The brain successfully reframed the stimulus from panic to pleasure, and now the body is responding accordingly with this pleasurable physical sensation. It's sensory feedback loop in action.
But then there's that other word choice, which is maybe even more interesting, delicious boysant.
Ah, yes, delicious. That's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Because delicious is language we usually use for taste, for gustatory experience, food.
Exactly. So describing an odor, an olfactory input, as delicious takes us into the territory of, well, maybe synesthesia in language. It's treating the smell as if it were something you could eat, something inherently palatable and pleasurable.
Why use delicious? What does that specific word choice tell us?
It suggests the pleasure derived from the smell is so intense, maybe so primal, that it's breaking through the usual sensory boundaries and description. Smelling it feels like consuming something incredibly satisfying.
So it highlights just how rewarding the narrator now finds this scent. It's
Yeah.
not just nice, it's fundamentally good, almost like nourishment.
That's one way to read it.
Yeah.
That linkage olfactory pleasure described using taste language, it really emphasizes the intensity. It's consumingly good. Plus, the tingles themselves often suggest a physiological response related to excitement, pleasure, maybe even a release of endorphins or adrenaline, but channeled positively now.
Okay, so the body is fully on board now. The internal chaos from the initial shock, replaced by this widespread physical pleasure. The smell has become this source of, yeah, almost like electric stimulation.
Right. The body is now completely aligned with the positive interpretation, and this state of euphoria, it doesn't just sit there. It doesn't plateau. It seems to escalate even further.
Yeah, it builds. Which leads us to what feels like the climax of this whole sensory journey described in the text, the final emotional declaration.
It's driving me boy crazy.
Boy crazy. Again, with the capitalization, tons of exclamation points. And this word, it's a neologism, right? A made-up word.
Seems to be, yeah. Boy crazy.
Why invent a word? Why wasn't it's driving me crazy or I'm obsessed enough? What does coining boy crazy suggest?
Well, creating a unique term like that suggests the state of mind, the intoxication or compulsion the narrator feels, is perceived as being incredibly specific. It's not just any kind of crazy. It's a particular state singularly caused by and related to the boy stimulus mediated through the smell.
So it needs its own label because it's a unique condition.
That's what it implies. Boy craze Y functions as the absolute apex of the sensory experience narrative. It signifies a state of complete, overwhelming compulsion, directly and irrevocably linked to the boy smell. It's like a specialized form of insanity, specific to this context.
It's almost like the narrator's entire operating system, their behavioral framework, has just been completely hijacked by this scent.
That's a good way to put it. If a smell drives you to invent a word to describe the mental state it induces, it suggests the reaction isn't just general infatuation or excitement. It implies a fundamental reorganization of their psychological state, based solely on this sensory input. It's the peak of the obsession described here.
So if we just step back and look at the whole arc described in these lines, it's actually kind of remarkable how much happens, how economically it's conveyed.
It really is. The document basically records, step 1, an immediate, overwhelming sensory hit the smell. Step 2, this generates acute panic. Step 3, the panic is actively managed through deliberate re-exposure, the deep breath.
Step 4, that management successfully flips the emotional switch, leading directly to intense physical pleasure, the tingles.
And step 5, it all culminates in this uniquely defined state of singular obsession, boy crazy Y.
Wow. That's like a whole short story told and driven entirely by one sense. The power of that smell is shown to be so profound that it dictates the entire psychological landscape. It demands panic, then it allows control, and finally it commands absolute emotional and physical surrender.
The smell itself really is the protagonist, the antagonist, and the resolution, all rolled into one. It drives everything.
And this intense focus on the internal world, the psychological drama, the physical sensations, that's what makes the very last part of the text feel like such an abrupt shift, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Because the narrator suddenly pivots from this deeply private internal experience.
To talking to someone else.
Exactly, to the public act of communication.
Right. After this incredibly intense, totally private journey detailing the internal crisis, the sensory overload, the euphoria, the obsession, suddenly the narrator just breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, it's a sharp pivot. They shift away from describing their inner state to directly addressing an external audience.
The text goes, if you are a boy and you're reading this. That transition is pretty stark, isn't it? Because up until this exact point, the whole thing felt like a personal diary entry, almost stream of consciousness.
Totally internal. And now, suddenly, that intensely private experience is seeking an outlet. It's reaching outwards, looking for communication.
It's like the narrator realizes there's potentially an external audience. They've been detailing their reaction to the boy's proximity, confirmed only by smell, and now they're trying to speak to that boy, even if only hypothetically.
It's almost as if the experience was so intense, the boy-crazy state so overwhelming, that it demands expression. It requires some kind of acknowledgement from the source of the stimulus, even if that acknowledgement has to be conditional if you are a boy.
So the document shifts its function right at the end, from being about processing the sensation internally.
To becoming a vehicle for expressing affection, an open but conditional message, based entirely on that processed sensation. It transforms into a kind of hypothetical love letter.
The message is basically, hey, if you happen to be the guy whose smell just did all this to me,
And this is for you, yeah.
and while the address is conditional, if you are, the message itself, when it comes, is very direct, very concrete. It ends with this specific, affectionate greeting. I just wanted to say, hi, cute boy, I love you.
And that final declaration, I love you, provides the ultimate resolution to the whole narrative arc we've been tracking. We have to connect this right back to the beginning, to that moment of panic. What is a boy doing here?
Good point. The initial reaction was fear, shock, maybe feeling threatened by the unexpected presence.
And now, having gone through that whole internal process triggered by the smell, the final output isn't fear, it's the complete opposite. It's transformed into the purest affirmation, acceptance, a declaration of love.
So the journey is complete. Detection via smell, shock, panic, self-management, physical euphoria, obsession, and finally, communication driven by affection. The sensory journey isn't finished until it's turned into an outward expression.
It seems so. The document doesn't end pondering the smell itself anymore. It ends with accepting and declaring love for the source of the smell. It's as if the sense of smell acted as this incredibly high-speed proxy for developing feelings, moving from bare recognition to, essentially, commitment in just a few lines of text.
So wrapping up the theme here, this incredibly short piece of source material is like a hyper-concentrated case study. It shows how one single sensory input, smell, can act as a powerful catalyst.
Yeah, initiating a whole psychological and emotional roller coaster, an entire narrative arc.
That ultimately concludes with this really intense declaration of feeling.
It's a potent reminder, isn't it, that our complex emotions, the things we think are driven by reason or sight or interaction, can sometimes be completely dictated by these primal, maybe non-cognitive inputs, like smell. The nose, in this case, seems to dictate the heart's immediate response. #outro.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our deep dive into this really unique piece of writing. We've traced that powerful emotional path driven entirely by an olfactory trigger, a smell.
We saw that immediate recognition of Boysmell just ignite this acute chaos, this panic.
Followed by that fascinating moment of self-control, the deliberate deep breath, taking in the source of the panic.
Which didn't just lead to calm, remember. It triggered this intense reversal. It flipped the switch straight into euphoria, physical sensation, obsession.
And finally, into that direct, affectionate message aimed at the source of the smell itself. The big takeaway for you listening is maybe just understanding the sheer speed and the completeness of that shift.
Yeah, how proximity, confirmed only by a scent, could totally rearrange someone's internal state and demand this immediate, profound emotional response. And then communicative action. It really highlights the power of those non-cognitive triggers.
It really does.
And that idea, that profound impact of just a smell, leads us to our final thought for you to mull over. And this comes straight from the text we've been looking at.
Okay, let's hear it.
If the mere perception of boy smell, just the smell, unconfirmed visually, may be unexpected, if that alone is enough to cause chaos, force this rapid self-regulation, and then spiral into a state of defined obsession, boy crazy, culminating in a declaration of love.
Yeah.
What does that really tell us about the sheer, immediate power of unconfirmed sensory data? How capable is something like a scent to just override reason, bypass our usual processing, and drive our most complex human emotions practically instantly?
That's a heavy question. Just thinking about how fast that whole internal journey happened in the text. From total panic to I love you, essentially triggered by one breath.
Exactly. It's something to think about the hidden power of the senses, maybe especially smell, in shaping our inner lives in ways we don't always recognize.